That's wrong screen. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Thriller here for the BBL SemiFinals Season 12. After a long and grueling 9 weeks plus the quarterfinals, the dust has finally settled, and we're here for the semifinals where we have four of the best teams duking it out for the chance to call themselves champion. And this is a really funny situation that we're in. But before we get into that situation, if you guys are new, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, join the Brew Crew today because we throw with the king of the crew. And with that, let's break down these playoff matchups, ladies and gentlemen. And let's talk about these matchups. So first off was going to be, I believe the first match that actually got posted out there was, I think it was Owen and Jason, I think it was. But we'll just say it was. So we have OG Albano, aka Owen, taking on my boy Diet Tight, aka Jason. I stayed neutral for this one. I really wanted to see how my buddies were gonna do well. And back and forth this matchup really went, and after some really clutch paras and potential flinches, after some clutch paras, I think it was mostly Jason was almost able to pull this out, but thanks to Dialga being well trained, not missing that Draco Meteor on the Giratina, Owen narrowly secures his 1-0 victory and makes it to the semifinals. And what was a quite absolute awesome game, coming down to the straight and narrow wire that it was. So really good game from them. Up next then was John versus Obo. And I again did stay completely neutral, but I did pick a person here. Now unfortunately I picked Jason and Owen won. But John versus Obo, this matchup definitely could have gone either way. After one mock with Obo, I should say, I really felt like Obo had a really good team matchup into John. But after a couple of semi big misses and after some really good calls by John, uh, and just being on that back foot, unfortunately, Obo just really couldn't get out of the box there going for him, unfortunately. And he came rough and go for him. So really unfortunate there. But I think played abs- Obo played absolutely great. He did everything he could. But your boy John Jr. walks away with another victory. The rematch of week one. He picks up the win and is moving on to the semifinals. Up next, we've got Joey versus Viz, probably the most hypest game of the season, and absolutely came down to one white absolute thrill ride of a matchup here. It went back and forth, up and down, left and right, major ups and down for both sides of the team. But in the end, it came down to whether or not a Shaman was scarfed or not. If a Shaman was scarfed, Joey had the game won. If potentially he had won. But if it wasn't, Viz was going to win as long as he connects. And Viz, unfortunately, was the scarf set and sent Mr. Joey PokeMD packing to the end of the rail here. And Viz pulls off what was an amazing matchup. And the game that took almost a whole week to get done. This is all banter. I don't really care that it took longer than a week to get done. It's just all fun and games. We have Shuckle versus Kyle, which was probably the second most hyped matchup, honestly, because it's Shuckle versus Kyle, another rematch match. But it's also that Kyle brings a key of unpredictability versus Shuckle, who has just got the pay to win team. And unfortunately, this kind of was all on Shuckle. Shuckle played the game perfectly well. Kyle just made some really tough reads and kind of misread his team a little bit and just was insanely on the back foot and didn't realize something. And even if he didn't realize that something, it was insanely hard for Kyle to even get a chance to get back into the fight here. But you know what? Kyle did the best he could to bring it back. But fortunately for him, excuse me, Shuckle walks away with a massive victory and now is into the semifinals. Now, it's funny here, guys, and the reason I said this at the earlier statement of this, these top four teams were the teams that got to pick their opponents. And I kid you not, it's the same top four that are in the playoffs. Coincidence? I don't think so. I'm just kidding. I don't know how they're going to win. But this is going to be really interesting here in terms of how these matchups are going to go. Now I believe it's going to be the highest seed versus the lowest seed. So at this point it is going to be Shuckle King, who is going to be taking on John Jr. And if you guys didn't know when I stated, I think I stated this in the video when it came to the quarterfinals. I honestly think this matchup is going to go in the favor of Shuckle King. I think if John wanted anyone to win, he wanted Kyle to win because that was honestly John's better matchup. We'll kind of discuss more, but this was honestly a matchup I think John's going to have the hardest time struggling here with, as Shuckle's team is really good. So let's talk about this matchup real quick before we get to the next matchup. We got Shuckle King's team here, which is Zacian, Iron Shreds, Ogrepon, Wellspring, Latios, Darkrai, Devoxys Defense, Petra, Delphox, and Willadin. Obviously, Shuckle's team performed very, very well. Um, Probably not as many kills as he would have wanted on some couple of his guys, but he definitely provided some really good, extraordinary work with this team. I think he really proved some ones out there. He really proved that Darkrai is not a fraud Pokemon. Hey, it's really Sean. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. I just had some supper not too long ago, and it's getting tiring. Getting late for me, and I've been starting to get a lot more tired in like around this time frame. So I apologize for all the yawns. But Shuckle's team just performed very well. Obviously, going super top heavy with your draft can be very risky, but Shuckle just proved to you that if you can just play around it really well, you just can perform really well with that. So really great from Shuckle. His team's just been fantastic, and it's just an overall powerhouse of a team. But you get to take on my boy John Jr. here, as he has got the Ho-Oh, Kyurem Black, Goldengo, Terra Iron Boulder, Grimmsnarl, Toadscroll, Galarian Weezing, Azelf, Swampert, and the Broken Terragrottal. John, who I think a lot of us did not expect him to do so well in Ubers, performed very, very well. Obviously, he had a couple of rocky ones, like the get match against Joey. It really came down to just some situational plays, but that was just a fantastic game. I believe he lost to Vapses, I think. That came down to I think like a set or something like that. I think it's off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember these matches the best of my abilities. And then I believe he lost week. Then he lost to. Um, Jesus. I don't remember who he lost to next. That's the only time I remember. But anyways, um, yeah, I don't remember who it was. But John's team has performed exceptionally. Now, obviously, it's been pretty much the top six that John's brought every single week. Obviously, he's mixed in things like Wheezing and Swampert, fairly amount as well. But it's been his top six pretty much the majority of the time that he has brought these ones, or at least his top five every single week. And even though, again, it's one of those things where it's so top heavy that you're literally just bringing the same stuff over and over again, John has performed exceptionally well with this team, and he has shown the team how well it can be good and how good a lot of these Monza Bruin have done well, especially Bloopy, the Toadstool. I believed in him the whole time, and it's going to take him here to semifinals. So hopefully he'll take himself to finals, but who knows? But overall, John, amazing player and did really amazing this season. So honestly, if he loses this week, he has got nothing to be ashamed for. He did really, really well, and he should be really proud of himself. So looking at this matchup from the Shuckle point of view here from John, Zacian F's him up so bad. Like, Zacian is insanely hard for John to deal offensively with. John does not have a safe switch in. The only safe switch in that he will have is Goldengo plus Galarian Weezing, but Zacian gets perfect coverage to counteract both Pokemon. It would force the Galarian Weezing to be fully fizzed out in order to be able to relatively check the Zacian and also force the Color Berry on the Goldengo in order to be able to take the hits from it. Darkrai is another Pokemon that John does not like dealing with here. Obviously, things like the Grimmsnarl, a potential Terra on the Iron Boulder, and the Galarian Weezing can do some decent damage with that, but the amount of coverage that Darkrai does have is really good here as well. The Access Defense, another annoying Pokemon that John's going to deal with here. It's just a super fat, annoying mon to deal with, and it can just easily get hazards up on John if he's not careful. Ogrepon Wellspring, I think, is probably the biggest threat to John, even though John, yes, does have a Cure in Black, which theoretically always 1v1 it no matter what. But it is Pokemon, and getting chip damage on a Pokemon can lead to a potential sweep. But Cure in Black is only the main thing that could potentially stop that thing. Other than that, just Cure in Black is just going to be a mass. I mean, not Cure in Black. Ogrepon Wellspring just kind of obliterates just about everything else. Forget, excuse me for the yawning. Does really well. Delphox, I don't think comes. Delphox doesn't really match up that well into this type of matchup. I don't think it really does well. If you're bringing Terraquilidin, you're throwing the game, Shuckle. I'm just saying that right now. Latios, a very interesting mod in this matchup where I do think Latios does relatively well into the matchup. Oh, it was Dell. That's where it is because Latios just came to mind. It was against Dell, and that came down to a very unfortunate 90% move hit. But yeah, Latios is fantastic this matchup. Latios is very good offensively, and it's kind of been one of Shuckle's kind of primary scarf targets this game, which has been really interesting to see him use it like that. But it's been obviously paying off for him. But Latios is fantastic here. Iron Treads, I don't know. If you bring Treads, I kind of like a booster speed offensive variant with Rock Slide or something like that, just to be able to take on Hua 1v1. But overall, Orange Trez is very good offensively in terms of also being decently okay defensively into this matchup as well in terms of what he can do. Petrobrunt is a wild card here. I could easily see Petrobrunt playing both brought and not brought this game. Petrobrunt can theoretically 1v1 John's physical offense so easy. It is really easy. Petrobrunt literally needs to be chipped down or not even brought in until we can get some setup going to where we can two-shot that thing regardless of anything that goes for and be able to take it on 1v1. So definitely going to be an annoying team for John to deal with. From Shuckle's perspective, I do think the Ho-Oh is going to be very interesting because pre-Terra Ho-Oh is very scary into things like the Ogre Paw and the Iron Shreds and stuff like that, especially if they're not booster or faster potentially. Ho-Oh is very annoying to deal with in terms of not wanting to get burned on a couple of things. Also, just the pivoting aspect and also some good little effects that Ho can do here. Kieran Black is an absolute monster in this matchup. I think Kieran Black, if it gets itself going, it can really just start to run shit, run town on Shuckle if he is not careful. It's definitely a very dangerous one in this matchup. Terra Iron Boulder looks absolutely insane here. I could see the option of potential Terra Grass, so you can be able to wall blow over upon stab. Terra Grass also gives you an option to be able to take on the Earthquakes from Iron Treads and also to be able to take out the resistances from the Latios. But I also could see something like Terra Fairy, so you can hit the Latios for offensive damage. I also wouldn't hate the idea of Terra Steel, as Terra Steel can again be able to resist one of the stabs from Ogre Palm before Terra. It resists dual stabs from Latios, and they can be able to take on things like the Petrant 100% of the time, and also take on the Sashin very well. So definitely going to be interesting to see how this Treads is going to these boulders to do well. I think Goldango is interesting. I think Goldango has some merit to show up, but I don't think it's also that good to be brought. Goldango is 100% Culver. If it's brought, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's only going to be ever Culver. It doesn't be anything else, which can really be things. Um, Toad Scroll, I think you bring if you're just really scared of hazards. I think you got to respect around the hazards and stuff like that to be brought. So I think overall makes a lot of sense. Galarian Weezing, I could potentially see being brought. I don't know if it's a guaranteed bring, but I think it's going to be one of the only best checks Zacian that John's going to have if he wants to be able to take that thing on relatively well in terms of what it's going to do. Swampert, don't really see a merit to bring it unless you're really confident you can play around Ogre Pond with it without trying to let it set up, but I don't really know if you do that. Grimstar, I think screens look very solid here as there's no good reliable way for Shuckle to break away screens a decent amount of the time, so I do think screens look really good here. So um, Azelf Azelf does actually have a bit of a rough matchup here. If Azelf comes, it has to be Scarfed, unfortunately, which I don't really like Scarf Azelf in this matchup. Cobra's okay, but Cobra's a little risky. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see on how that matchup goes with it. But overall, like I said beforehand, this was honestly John's worst matchup to get into the semifinals. And unfortunately, with that being said, I'm going to have to pick my man Shuckle King here to go with this week just because I think his matchup is a lot better into John than anything else. And I do think it's going to be one of those matchups that John's going to struggle. But John, he's definitely no quitter. And I don't think I've ever seen Shuckle King and John face. They might have faced one or two other times before that, but I haven't seen them faced in probably forever or even at all. So this should be an exciting matchup. And honestly, both games are tied for game of the week for me because both are super good for their own unique reasons. So up next, we have got Viz, who I believe was the second seed overall. And Viz just dominated, man. Viz just took his hyper offensive team that has little bulk at all, which his only main bulk he's putting is some slightly Archaludon, Palipar, and Mimikyu. Yes, I said Mimikyu, and even Ursaluna to a degree. But this dude has prepped and played absolutely out of his mind and played super fantastic in every single week and somehow plays Dragon Ball clips without getting copyrighted. That's a goat right there. But I think he's really shown this team that going super hyper offensive with a build like this just fits a play style that's really really well, and he has really showcased his team very well this season. and just overall dominant performance. Like I think his only loss was to Seabad and maybe one other person. There might have been one other person that's beat him, which I am blanking on the name. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I think I am blanking on the name. Yeah, I'm blanking on the name. I don't know who it was. But Viz team, super, super good. And he is taking on my bro, OG Albina here with the Dialga Fluttermane Mew, which is Terra, Crocodile, Ogre Cornerstone, Quack, wow, wow, wow. Wheezing, Shaman, Rotom Heat, Zebra, Brew Quack, I didn't mention Business Team, but Business Team was DX Attack, Shaman Sky, Student Samurai, Archalda, Palafin, Pelipper, Terra Ursaluna, Terra Vikable, and Mimikyu. But Owen's team, honestly, Owen's team was one of the best that I knew on paper as soon as the draft was done. I think he grabbed such the perfect 1-2 combo with his Ubers because you can just see by the stats, man, that each of his Ubers, besides 1 week, I'm guessing, because there was some week I guess he was just fearing it. But Valerian Dialga, confident Pokemon that were both brought consistently and performed consistently well. Terramew was one of probably the sleeper mons for Owen this season. I think it definitely performed exactly what he needed to. Croak, he just does Croak things. He's awesome. Ogerpon doing decently well for Owen. Obviously, could have a lot more sweeps probably out there as well. Quack, I'm not gonna lie, he's definitely underperformed with it a little bit more than I was hoping he would do. Weezing shined beautifully in some weeks. Shaman, it was a letdown. Rotom, he's just okay. And Sableye, he came to one game. But I think Owen has performed with this team, excuse me, absolutely spot on and perfect with. I think he's constructed it really, really well, and I think he's performed with it really well. But that being said, let's break down the matchup. So from Owen's point of view when he's facing Viz, Deoxys attack is scary. And I do think it's another matchup where Deoxys attack arguably might be scarfed this matchup. And in order to respect the Flutterby in this game, it also could have a lot of different variations of what it can go with here, but I do think Fluttermane is going to be one of the reasons it forces a Scarf Dio this week. But Dio just insane, dude. Like once the Crook goes down and Dialga is shipped down, Psychic Spam is super free into a lot of Pokemon here. So I really expect that. I am 100% expecting Terra Ursaluna with Bulletproof. I think Bulletproof makes the most sense here as it shuts down Shadow Ball from Fluttermane from the Ghost Spam that you can do against your team, which is relatively well. And I do expect some to lines up maybe Terra Normal, as they do really good at Bullet Sponge between for Focus Blast as well. Super strong on this matchup. I don't know if Webbs show up here this week. I think Webbs is a little bit of a wild card bring here. Webbs could affect a lot of things. I could see Boots and a lot of Pokemon. Obviously, Owen's removal is Coco Vol, which does have a very good, decently good matchup here, so you can take advantage of the rank from Pelipper if it is brought. Pelipper, in my opinion, doesn't show up. Pelipper's just a useless mon to be brought here this game. Archaludon is definitely going to be something that Owen is going to have to really be careful because Archaludon actually could be a scary threat between Iron Defense and Body Press, and then just having dual stab, this mon can kind of just do just about anything it really wants this game. It's really, really threatening. Does a really lot for him, which is going to be really annoying. Mimikyu, I could see a Merrick to show up as it's a good revenger into things like Fluttermane, but I do think Owen's going to be smart enough to run some stuff like maybe potentially cast a barrier to should be shut down the Mimikyu, especially when the disguise is broken. But also Mimikyu can do really well into the Yalga decently well. It does fantastic into things like Croak and Cornerstone, Quaquaval. The only mons I think it's going to struggle to deal with is potential Terra on the Mew and the Wheezing. Other than that, it's a Pokemon that kind of just does really well into most things out there. The Palafin is interesting. Palafin has what I would consider the 50-50. It's a Pokemon that easily should come, but it's also a Pokemon that should probably not come. It's a really tough brain to bring, especially when you have to bring out that Palafin form. You have to play around just it right, which I think is really tough to do in terms of a matchup like this, but we'll have to wait and see. The Student Samurai, I think, is always going to fit on the team because it can freely click CC's Edge for the most part into everything. Because whatever just want to come in on CC's Edge, just do not want to take an Aqua Cutter. And knowing this, I'll probably run Air Slash or Aerialist for the Quackle Full because he knows that the Quackle might have to be forced to be brought in terms of stopping the hazards. And then Shaman Sky. Shaman Kai, in my opinion, probably a wild one here. I think it could show up. I think it could not show up. It's really up in the air. It kind of is decisive of what you want to go with here. But overall, I think if it's brought, I think a healing with support piece would be really good for this team. But we'll have to just wait and see how that goes. From Viz's point of view, Dialga plus Fluttermane are kind of unresisted here. I think these two are just super good into the Viz's team majority of the time, and Viz just have to play around that because he doesn't have really good reliable switches to both so much of special offense besides Ursula, in my opinion. So really interesting who's going to do with that. Crocodile, I could see him most likely not bringing into Viz as Crocodile kind of gets body bagged by a lot of things on Viz's team. Ogrepon Cornerstone, really massive 50-50 bring here, in my opinion, as it is kind of really tough to essentially bring. Quackavolt, again, another Pokemon that has, again, another good 50-50, but it may or may not be showing up just because it can take advantage of that range really well, but it doesn't be able to 1v1 stuff like the Shaman Sky unless it gets a protected Axle or a Speed Race so it can be faster. And also, it can be faster against the Deoxys, with something like maybe potentially Aqua Jet, and also be able to take on the Mimikyu. So, really interesting to see there. Weezing, I don't necessarily hate this matchup. Weezing's relatively good as it can do a lot of things here. Weezing would primarily be more of like just a defensive tank into things like, say, the Hisuian Samurai, the Archelodon, Palafin, and stuff like that. Mimikyu, just overall good checks to it as well. Sableye, it's actually kind of annoying for Viz to deal with here, but I don't know if Sableye's that good. Rotom Heat, don't think you ever bring that. Shaman could potentially come. It could be a Shaman mirror match this week as both Shamans do access to Air Slash. So we could see a Shaman versus Shaman matchup here, but I don't realistically think it's the best bring here. I think that's pretty much everything. But then Mew. Mew is a wild card because I don't know exactly Mew is going to be. I could see some type of defensive variant with setup to kind of set up and sweep with something along the lines of maybe something like Terra Water, Terra Poison, Terra Dark, Terra Ghost, maybe Terra Fairy. Who knows? It's going to be really interesting to see how this music be built and used. But in terms of the matchup, I am going to go with Viz here. I think Viz overwhelmingly offensively can just do a lot of things towards Owen. But Owen can definitely bounce back that offense if he plays it right. But Viz, very scary matchup. They are, if I remember correctly, Viz is 1-1 with Owen. Viz beat him in the regular season, and then Owen beat him in semifinals, I think, of BBR on the season at 0-1. So this is a rubber match here between these two, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how this game's gonna go down. Now, obviously, they could have also played in LTM, which was the low tier league that Owen did for Wi-Fi, which had the two Palde and Taurus on. I could be wrong. On them playing, not the league logo. But it's gonna be really interesting to see how this matchup goes. This is a matchup, like I said, can go either way, but I think Viz just overwhelmingly offensively does really well in this matchup. So that is gonna be our semifinals, guys. And breaking the fourth wall, I know who's going to be in the finals, but I ain't going to spoil nothing in the finals, no matter if you even pay me $1,000, which only do if you actually want to do that. Don't actually do it just so we know who is going to be facing who in the finals. Those that know will know, and those that don't know, they'll have to wait for this week and find out. We got to find out tomorrow on Sunday to find out who's going to the finals and who is ending their run right here and now. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Definitely show some love to every single BBL coach down below. And please do get ready for these battles because these could be really exciting. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.